I smell you hobbits as you come back to Pocket Ronnie.
Alright, now we're going to be doing right and left parabolas. We're looking at 24a, number 4. You can see here we have x equals 4y squared. Right and left parabolas are when y is squared and x is not. So that's when you have a right and left parabolas. The majority of the time you will see up and down parabolas, but you still need to be aware of right and left parabolas. So this is in the standard form to where x is on one side and everything else is on the other side. So now we look at this coefficient here, it's positive. So if it's positive, it means it's facing to the right. It's facing toward the positive side of the graph. And then there's no number up here, so there's no shifting. So just as an estimate, and the same thing, this coefficient also tells us how wide or how narrow. It's a larger number, so it's going to be a narrow parabola. So, so we're starting at the origin because, again, if I put in 0 here, this is going to be 0. So we're starting at the origin. When there's no number shifting, we're starting at the origin, and we said it's facing to the right, and we said it's narrow. So my estimate is something like that. So again, we can plot some values. I still make my chart the same way because basically I am calculating coordinates, x, y coordinates. But on these, be careful. You want to pick a value for your square term first. So whatever letter has a square on it, that's what you want to pick a value for. So if I put in, so now I'm going to put in values for y and then calculate x. So putting in 0 for y, make sure you put this in the proper place on your chart. Don't put that in for x. I'm putting in 0 for y. So putting in 0 for y, 0 squared is 0, and 0 times anything is 0. So that way then my x is 0. Okay? Now if I put in 1, so x equals 4, 1 squared. 1 squared is 1, 1 times 4 is 4. So if I put in 1 for y, I put in 1 for y. Put that in the right place. My x value was 4. So what if I put in negative 1 for y? I put in negative 1 for y. Negative 1 squared is a positive 1. Times 4 is still 4. And then you can go on from there. What if I put in 2? Okay. 2 squared is 4, and 4 times 4 is 16. I put in 2 for y. Okay, and then I got 16. I'm going to be way, larger numbers probably than my graph. Same if I put in a negative 2. And I would get 16. And then when you go to plot these, you plot them the same way. Remember, you do your x coordinate first and then your y coordinate. So just make sure when you have these sideways parabolas that you're writing down your chart correctly. We're plugging in values for y and then we're calculating x. So now we have points that we can plot on the graph. Okay, now we're doing 24a, number 4, right-left parabola. Our vertex was at the origin, 0, 0. Then 4, 1. Remember just getting your coordinates correctly. So when you're done, it should be facing the direction that you estimated. So going in the x direction 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1. Now going in the x direction 4, down negative 1. The right and left will be symmetrical about the x-axis. So obviously I'm going to be off the graph at 16, 2, but that gives me an idea that I'm going to be way over here at 16 and not past 2, up where y is 2. So this is a very narrow parabola, so that kind of tells me that it's going to look like this. Because I'm not even going to hit 2 in the y direction until I get to 16 in the x direction. Alright, now we're looking at 24b3. I'm going to estimate the graph for you, but I'm not going to graph it on graph paper for you, but I will get you started with plotting some points. So we have x equals 1/2 squared plus 3. Is it in a general form to start with? That's the first thing you have to look at. X is on one side and everything else is on the other side. I know it's a sideways parabola or a right-left parabola because y is squared, x is not. When y is squared and x is not, it's a right-left parabola. So then I look at this coefficient. This coefficient is positive. If this is positive, it's facing to the right, which is the positive direction on the x-axis. And then it's a smaller number, a fraction. Smaller numbers means a wider parabola. So, to estimate, first let's just say if that number wasn't there. If that number wasn't there, then we said it was going to face to the right, and we said it was going to be wide. If that number wasn't there, we'd be starting at the origin. My vertex would be at the origin, and it would be a wider parabola, and it would be facing to the right. So, now that this number is there, this number tells you, are we shifting to the right or to the left? It's a positive 3, which means we are shifting toward the right. Positive means shift to the right. We will shift 3 spaces to the right. 1, 2, 3. So just take the whole parabola, leave it the same shape it is, and just shift it over 3 to the right. Remember, when we're dealing with sideways parabolas, this tells you shifting to the right or to the left. So it will look just the same. We're just now shifting to the right. So our parabola would look something like that, and would be symmetrical about the x-axis. So you can plot a few points, you can calculate a few points to graph, to plot, to confirm this. So we make a little XY chart, but we're going to pick values for whatever letters are squared term. Y is squared, so we need to plot values for that. So putting in 0 for Y, that's always the easiest. 0 squared is 0, 0 times anything is 0, and 0 plus 3 is 3. So that confirms our vertex at 3, 0. This is at 3 in the x direction, didn't go anywhere in the y direction. So I'm just going to pick multiples of 2 to get rid of my denominator. So I'm going to put in 2 for y. So if y was 2. So that would be x equals 1/2 2 squared plus 3. That would be 1/2 times 4 plus 3. Put that over 1. Those cancel to leave 2. So that would be, leave a 2 here. X equals 2 plus 3, which is 5. So when y is 2, x equals 5. Make sure and put everything in the right place. If we picked a negative 2, it would end up being the same answer. So if we had negative 2, we would still get 5. So that is a few points to get you started, and that pretty much matches my graph. If I was to come over here and plot 5, 2, scoot over 5, up 2, scoot over 5, then down 2. That matches my estimate that I have so far. Okay, we're on 24B2. Again, I'm not going to graph this one on graph paper, but I will give you an estimate, and I will give you some points to start out with to graph it. So we have 2x equals negative 4y squared plus 8. My y is squared, my x is not. That tells me that it's a right-left parabola. But it's not in general form. When it's a right-left parabola, general form is x on one side, everything else on the other side. So I need to get rid of the 2. So I need to divide this by 2. So that means I divide everything by 2. So it would be x equals a negative divided by a positive is a negative. Okay. Now it is in general form. So now I can look at it and see, okay, look at this coefficient. It's negative. So it's going to face the left. Okay. When you have a right-left parabola and this coefficient's negative, it's going to face the left. And it's a 2 coefficient, so it's going to be a little bit narrower. So if this number wasn't there, then I know I'd be starting at the origin, and it would be something like this, probably a little bit narrower than that. It would be facing the left. This faces the left, the negative side of where the negative numbers are on the x direction. But now that I've got this plus 4, a positive number here means shifting to the right. Okay, so I would just take this whole thing, leave it just the way it is, and shift it to the right 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it would look exactly the same way it does now, just shift it to the right. So don't change anything, just move the whole thing and shift it to the right. So it would still look the same, because it would still face the left. It still needs to face the left, just shifting to the right. So plotting some numbers to start with. Remember, I'm going to pick values for y, so let's start with 0. So I'm putting a 0 in for y. That makes this term go away, which leaves 4. And that matches what I have. My vertex is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. The coordinate 4, 0. Okay? So let's just put in 1 for y. If I put in a 1 right there. Okay? 1 squared is 1. 1 times negative 2 is negative 2, so it would be negative 2 plus 4, which would be a positive 2. So when I put in 1 for here, I get a positive 2 for for x. If I put in a negative 1 for y, that was a negative, I should still get the same answer. I would still get a positive 2. So that gives you at least 3 points to start with on plotting for that parabola.